Welcome to Authenticity, which is all about shaping high-performance workplace culture. My name is Simon Tyson, and in my role as CEO of the Real Learning Experience, I've been working with organisations for nearly 30 years, helping them create exceptional workplaces. As a leader, you know the daily effort needed to create a culture that produces great results and in which team members and customers are happy. Those things do not happen by accident. The journey isn't always easy, and that's why this podcast exists. Make sure you subscribe as we share our experiences and strategies to help you transform the workplace culture you have into the workplace culture you want.
Hi listeners, and welcome back to Authenticity, Transforming Workplace Cultures. Today we have one of our bonus format episodes which we call Front Page Leadership. This format addresses topical subjects within the media that have a strong underlying leadership message within. We take the headlines and the stories and we discuss and extract the leadership lessons to be learnt for our listeners. Before we move on to today's topic, I would like to welcome my co-host Simon Tyson.
Hi listeners, and welcome to another episode of Authenticity, Transforming Workplace Culture. And this is another episode of our spin-off series, Front Page Leadership. My name is Simon Tyson, and with me I have my co-host, Kiralee Walkerton. Welcome, Kiralee.
Thank you, Simon, and hello to listeners.
Now today, Kiralee, we're going to be talking about a topic and about a person you feel very, very strongly about. And you've got some great ideas that I know you're going to share with our listeners. It's the Ash Barty story, which has been in the news recently. And there are some great lessons there for leaders as leaders, but I think possibly more importantly in this case, lessons for leaders as humans. I'm going to throw to you, Kiralee, because I know you're bursting with lots of ideas here.
Yes, I do love Ash Barty. I'm not going to get quite as passionate and worked up as previous episodes have been about cricket, but let's get into it. So what I think we're going to chat about today is Ash Barty and Ben Crowe, who is Ash's mindset coach. Ben Crowe, for those who don't know, is a former Nike executive and he's a mindset coach for high-profile athletes. So Ash Barty, Dylan Alcott, Andre Agassi, Pat Cummins, Steph Gilmore. He's worked with the Richmond Football Club and the Brisbane Broncos. And he has a really good podcast, which I will link down here as well.
Look, you had me at Richmond Football Club.
Yeah, he worked with them in their success. I'm not sure he works with them now, so maybe that speaks for itself.
That is correlation.
That's right. What we're going to chat about today is not so much about Ash Barty, the tennis player. We're going to talk about Ash Barty, the person, and I think that is really what is the amazing story that comes out of her decision and the way that she's carried herself through her decision to retire from tennis. And I watched her press conference. I don't read a lot of mainstream media, but what I do read is anything that Ben Crowe writes. And he wrote an article for the Financial Review, and he's had some social media posts where he's given his spin on what's going on. And ultimately, his message about Ash's retirement has been that the greatest lesson Ash is teaching the world or has taught the world is redefining success and separating the person from the persona. And I think that's a really important lesson for everyone to take. And what's been, I think if we think about the news that's been reported and how it's been reported, the articles around the world are openly saying and conveying the message that playing tennis is what she does, not who she is. And I think that's a real credit to Ash, because that has been her ultimate goal and her strong messaging throughout her career. She's been very open and honest about where she stands as to her reflection on herself and why she does what she does. And the reflection that has had played out in the media, I think, is pretty amazing.
So it's about what you allow to define you. I love
Absolutely.
that distinction.
Yeah, absolutely.
And look, I can say, and it's unrelated, but as the father of a child with dyslexia, we've always been really strong about describing him, and I now have two, so her as well, as a child, someone with dyslexia, not a dyslexic person, because it's about what you let be your defining trait, your defining characteristic. And I think you've got to be really careful about what you allow that to be.
Absolutely. And I went on to read a reflection that Ben Crowe had on an article that he wrote in the Financial Review in 2020, which was about Ash, and it was about her outlook and the work that she's done on herself. And he said that he was actually approached by an astounding number of male CEOs after that article was published in the Financial Review. And following the conversations he had with these people, he believed that there was a whole generation of 50 plus alpha males who have achieved success but are not fulfilled. And achievement without fulfillment is the ultimate failure in life. And he had so many people contacting him, so people at CEO level, where they see someone like Ash Barty achieve, but at the same time of winning, she's also saying that she's so fulfilled and she's so happy. And these people are like, how do I get some of that? Because I've got everything intrinsically, but I don't have what Ash has. How do I do that? And he had so many leaders contact, and I think he's referred to males purely because of statistical numbers of CEO males in Australia, but just that had that awakening of going, I have everything, but I don't have that. I want that.
But
how
also,
do I get that?
I think not just because of statistical numbers, because as a 50-plus CEO myself, maybe statistically we're a group that is less good at making that distinction between achievement and fulfillment. Perhaps, we've grown up in a generation with values or with drivers that maybe cloud that for us. And I think separating those two out and making us really reflect on that distinction is so important. And something we talk a lot about, Kiralee, is what motivates someone to be a leader. And I think if you're motivated by status and if you're motivated by prestige or power or by control, then it becomes so much about achievement. And after a while, that achievement can feel hollow, can feel unfulfilling. Whereas if you're motivated by deeper things, then the fulfillment, and so the motivated by making a really positive difference or by seeing people grow, then that's more likely to be linked, I guess, with fulfillment.
Absolutely. And Ben Crowe, often in a lot of the podcasts I've heard, talks about humans have an instinct to go, when I get this, I'll be happy. When I get that promotion, I'll be happy. When I get that car, I'll be happy. When I get that house, I'll be happy. When I go on that holiday, I'll be happy. And we never actually pause in that moment and reflect and are grateful for what we've achieved and pause in that moment and go, gee, I did well. We get the car and then we go, okay, now I want the house. And we get the house and we go, okay, now I want the holiday. Or we get the promotion, now I want the next promotion. And it's never that mindset of being mindful in that moment of going, wow, this is really great. I'm going to cherish this moment. And I think that plays a lot to do with people that are in high performing roles, because you have to have that competitive edge to move forward, and sometimes you get lost in it.
And we make being grateful and happy so complicated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it shouldn't be that complicated. And again, it's really resonating for me, that distinction between achievement and fulfillment. Do you mind if I go back to one other thing that I think is just so critical, that being defined by what you are versus, so are you a tennis player or are you a person who plays tennis? We all know that leadership can be really tough. It can be really demanding, that if you're doing leadership properly, you're going to be pissing some people off because you're going to be making courageous decisions that are not necessarily popular. You're going to be telling people no. You're going to be providing feedback they don't like to hear. And if you are a leader, that's what defines you too holistically, and that is, your job is your life, then that's shattering when people are unhappy with you. And particularly for new leaders, it makes it very difficult to cope with. Whereas when you're a person who does leadership and you're not completely defining yourself by that, you're more able to get through those moments. and put them in perspective and say, you know what, while I was doing leadership and while I was doing it effectively, yes, some people were unhappy about the decision I needed to make, but it was the right decision and I did it appropriately. But that doesn't shatter me as a person. And that means you come back the next day to leadership much stronger.
Absolutely. And I think it's just humanizing leadership and being vulnerable in your role as a leader.
Yeah.
So and thinking about Ash, like it made me reflect on in her when I was thinking about exactly how she holds herself and carries herself and the reflections that she has on her role as a leader within a sport, a leader of young people within Australia. I thought about the 2020 Australian Open press conference where she brought her niece after she lost, and the media said to her, "Oh, you've got your niece here," and she goes, "Yeah, it's perspective."
Yeah.
And that was how so most people in her role at the level that she's at would gain perspective from a debrief, rewatching the match, the coach's feedback. Her perspective was her niece sitting on her knee saying, "I love you, Auntie Ash," and, reminding her that there are bigger things than tennis. And I just think that's something that we can all remember for those of us that have kids or for those of us that have nieces and nephews or anyone in your family. Like, that is the bigger picture. There's more to life than some of the things that they feel like they're the biggest moments, but they actually aren't.
Which shows the danger of not developing a balanced life, because
Absolutely.
there then can be no perspective because you've got nothing to provide that perspective. So, no, I think, again, great points. And I was going to say facetiously, of course, Ash Barty's lucky here because she was born with this wonderful ability to have perspective and context, which of course is bullshit. She worked at it just like any other human being. And I don't know that. I don't know her, but no one's born with that immediately. Maybe she had some head starts. Maybe she had some advantages, but any of our listeners can develop that perspective really by making it a habit to look for it, to find that balance or to find that context that's bigger than that moment. It's really just that developing a habit, isn't it?
It is. And I think someone like Ash has probably always been very emotionally aware, but I think her values of where she's come from, she's placed a significant value on who she is and the way she carries herself. And that's why when she has formulated her coaching team, someone like Ben Crowe has been someone that she has valued, not only with someone teaching her, how to better hit the ball and, how to the nutrition and all the aspects that come into a high performing athlete. Her mindset has been at the top, and Ben Crowe is right there next to her wherever she is anywhere. He went with her after she won the Australian Open, he was right there with her. And I think that really shows both the relationship they have and the value she places on what he brings to the team. And on that, just how can we be a little bit more like Ash, I guess, if some people say, how do we do that? I was reading Ben Crowe. He speaks about most people define success by achievement and therefore become very extrinsically motivated, which can distract us from what we see as important things in life. And the worst one of all is craving the recognition and constantly caring about what other people are thinking or saying, or for high-performing athletes, what the media is writing about us, rather than what we think about ourselves. So we'll always, and when we think that way, we start to always be searching and grasping, and we'll never be at peace or content. So what he's worked on with Ash and what Ash has accepted is she's accepted herself unconditionally and she knows who she is. And once we know who we are, we write our own story and we no longer care about what others think of us. We still care about them, but we don't care about what they think about you. And so he believes the key to doing this work is doing the self-reflection, which is something that we always work with our leaders on and say we need to have those moments of self-reflection. When things go bad as a leader, the first question we ask ourselves is, what failure of leadership led to this? Yeah. So it's having that self-reflection, and it's asking, who am I, before we ask, what do I want? And the fact is that most people don't do that. Most people go after what they want, and that's why they find it's never enough.
And you know, sorry, go on. You keep.
No,
continue.
that's what I was going to say. So I was just going to say, so once we have that foundation, then we know who we are, then we can go after what we want. And that is the lesson that Ash has taught the world. She knew who she was and she knew who she wanted to be. And the fact that she became the greatest tennis player in the process was a bonus because she was living who she wanted to be.
Yeah, being true to herself. And look, I'm going to call something out here. There's always an excuse. And I think the most successful people choose not to use it. And the excuse in this case could be something like, well, I can't afford Ben Crowe. I'm a leader who can't afford a Ben Crowe. To be honest, that's an excuse. There's some truth in that for a lot of our listeners, but it's still an excuse. And one of Ash Barty's greatest gifts to the Australian public is she's put these lessons out there for us to learn.
Yeah.
We don't need Ben Crowe. Now, I if Ben's listening, I don't want to undermine your business model, mate. But I'm sure he's got more business than he needs. But our listeners don't need Ben Crowe to do this. They can take these lessons, and if they've got the courage and the will to self-reflect and to learn lessons that other people have put in front of them, they're there free and as a bonus. So yes, there's an excuse of time. Yes, there's an excuse of not having access to resources. Choose not to use them and choose to use what is available to you.
Absolutely. And it actually made me think about the podcast episode we launched yesterday where we spoke with Kirsten and just some of the insights that she shared, which she doesn't have a Ben Crowe. It's just being true to yourself and living your authentic self and knowing what you value inside of you and using those values in your leadership journey and not selling out on those values and not becoming distracted by the expectation of others. And I think when you know who you are, you own your own story and you don't get distracted by the expectations of others or the expectation for outcome. When you become vulnerable and you open up, you don't have to feel like you need to be that perfect leader or that perfect person because you bring everyone along on the journey. And, the failures or the moments that you feel could have gone better, you're actually teaching, coaching, people are learning from you and it makes you a stronger leader.
Stop hiding behind the facades of power, prestige, position, esteem, etc. Because when you do that, everyone wins. You become a more fulfilled person and you become a better leader, which has a positive impact on the people around you. So great lessons. And I'm going to tell our listeners, when you said to me, I think we should do a front page leadership about Ash Barty, I said, look, I'm really fascinated by Ash Barty, but I don't know all that much about the story. And is there enough in this for an episode? The distinctions that you've helped me see in this episode, in this 15 minutes, have been fantastic. So I'm so pleased we did this.
Yeah. Well, I have one more thing I want to chat about before we wrap it up. And it was thinking about people who have come before Ash Barty and thinking about the expectations, like as a high profile athlete, the expectations that are placed on you, but also as leaders, the expectation that we feel are placed on us. And I actually thought about the comparison to Ian Thorpe, who, for those who know Ian Thorpe, he was an absolute champion Australian swimmer, also retired very early in his career. And I remember when he retired and he spoke about the long hours of training and his words were staring at the long black line at the bottom of the pool. And he no longer had a passion for swimming. It was literally staring at that black line as he was going up and down the pool. And he admitted that he pulled the pin long after his passion to compete had gone. And the reason he did that was, he said, I know there's a lot of people out there who wanted me to keep swimming. I was only hoping that I would continue wanting to swim as much as other people wanted me to. Yeah. And I thought, wow, imagine that. Imagine that being you are disliking. And I think, yes, that's a high profile athlete, but there are plenty of people in the position like him that get up every morning and they are swimming that long black line of the pool because they just do not enjoy what they do, or what they do is not being true to themselves. Yeah. And I think we compare that to Ash Barty, and knowing what I know about Ash and having listened to her and listened to Ben, there is no way she would have swung that racket once if her heart wasn't in it, because she is unapologetically, I owe it to myself first before anyone else.
Yes.
And whilst I know that we're not all Ash Bartys and Ian Thorpes and have the luxury of being able to just walk away from our career at any time, we have mortgages, we have bills, we have kids, we have the cost of living. I don't think we can hide from that voice inside of us when we're not happy or when we're doing something that isn't providing us with passion.
Totally agree.
And the quote that I thought about was, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives.
Yeah. Our average day becomes our average week, becomes
Absolutely.
our average month, becomes our life.
And that doesn't mean you have to pull the pin on what you do, but if you feel like you're not being true to your authentic self in your leadership journey, ask yourself, who am I? And then after you know who you are, okay, how can I bring that to the table? How can I be authentically myself every day in my decisions? Is it that I need to let go of the perfection facade, that I have the answers and that I don't make mistakes? Is it that I need to open up the lines of trust? Is it I need to have more courageous conversations with people? But that's where it starts, I think, when we feel like we're on a journey where we're swimming that long black line every day.
Yeah, and look, if your average day, if your worst day is not fulfilling, that's okay. But if your average day is not fulfilling, then that's an issue. That's something you can't afford to not deal with. So, can I pick up on two things you just said there? Because light bulbs going off in my head. What I love about what Ash Barty did, and this is the bit that when you floated this idea with me and said, look, do you think we should have a chat about this? This was the bit that immediately came to mind. What I love about the Ash Barty story is she had the courage to do what was right for her.
Absolutely.
Not what was expected of her, not what was right for someone else.
Yeah, 100%.
Can you imagine the pressures on someone in that position? Can you imagine the voices of you're young, you've won, did she win 3 Grand Slams?
Yep.
Three Grand Slam tournaments. You've got so many more you could win, et cetera, et cetera. There's all this money you could make. The promoters need you. The fans love you. All this pressure to do something that wasn't right for her, yet she did what was right for her. And I think that takes tremendous courage. And I think as long as we don't hurt anyone else in the process of doing what's right for us, then it's a good thing to do. But it takes courage sometimes. The other thing that really occurs to me is, again, there's an excuse there, isn't there? Oh, Ash Barty's won 3 Grand Slam tournaments. She's got millions of dollars. She can afford to do this. I don't have that freedom. And I'm going to call, to some degree, bullshit on that. Because you know what? Yes, you might need to go and do some work to pay the mortgage, to, et cetera, et cetera. But 2 questions for you. That explains why you go to work. But does it explain why you go to this work? So if this work is no longer fulfilling, is there a different choice you could make that would bring fulfillment back and would still allow you to meet those needs, but it might mean giving up some prestige status, etc. And I'm not urging all of our leaders to go out there and quit, but if your heart is not being in your leadership role, then it's hard to be a good leader. The second thing is how much of that need is real and how much of it is created. And I'll always remember the story of a senior leader that we worked with who was making enormous amounts of money, had the massive mansion, way bigger than she needed, went on expensive overseas holidays every year, drove a beautiful car, had everything she wanted, and was totally unfulfilled by it. And in her heart, what she wanted to do was teach children to swim. So that's what she went to do. And she could still pay a mortgage, but not the same one. She could still go on holidays, but they were local, not international. She could still drive a car, but it was not quite as fancy. But what she recognised in our discussions was those were all tokens, and those were all elements of superficial achievements, all signals of superficial achievement rather than of genuine fulfillment. And so made different choices and was prepared to live with the consequences of those choices. So they're the two questions I had in listening to, in thinking about that.
No, I definitely agree with you. And I think ultimately, if you're not fulfilled, then I think you really need to ask yourself, what can I do to change? And it doesn't necessarily have to be quitting your job. It can be changing your approach. There's so many things that you can do. But if achievement without fulfillment is the ultimate failure in life, as Ben Crowe says.
Yep. I can't add anything smarter than that, so I'm going to stop talking.
All right. Well, we might wrap it up here then.
Fantastic. And again, I'm so glad that you were passionate about doing this, because I think it's been a great chat.
Yeah, it's been. I've loved the lessons I've learned through Ash's journey, and we'll continue to learn with whatever she chooses to go to next.
That will be fascinating.
Well, we better. What's your guess of what she's going to do? Everybody else around Australia is having their guess, so
are they?
Well. Yeah.
Look, she went and played cricket for a while. I mean, I guess if she's still got a passion for that, she may end up back there. Someone who's that capable at sport, maybe she's going to become a triathlete or something. I don't know, but maybe it'll have nothing to do with sport. So
I think it will, and I think it will be golf.
There you go. Now, I think you're better informed than me. So, again, I've got nothing smart to add, so I'm going to stop talking.
All right. We'll see you.
Thanks, Carolee.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Authenticity, Shaping High-Performance Workplace Culture. If this episode has provided you with strategies, insights, or inspiration, head to your favourite podcasting app and make sure you subscribe to be notified of future episodes. To get a sense of how your current culture measures up, you can take our Authentimeter, a free online assessment. It will take you about 10 minutes and give you an indicator of exactly how authentic your culture is. You can find that at authenticity.com.au/podcast.